In this video, I'm going to show you how I took my golf game from a prototype with unique controls to an actual game that is ready for playtesting. Along the way, I found 3 big issues I would have to solve, and it gets weird. But luckily, I don't have to do it on my own, because in my last video, I asked you for your help and your ideas on what I could add to the game. And boy, did you have ideas. A Where's Waldo-esque minigame where you have to find your ball in the rough. A man in a bad gorilla costume beating you up if you take too long to take a shot. Eagle turns your golf ball into an eagle. How about you, Mr. Tuner? You got any ideas, mate? So when I built the prototype for my game, Luke Muscat's Ultimate Golf Challenge, I mostly focused on the controls. The core idea was to design a control system that was difficult like real golf, where you would hit bad shots a lot. The system I came up with is that you have to drag the club with physics, while also controlling the club face angle and path to hit a shot with your janky FMV golfer. And it's pretty hard. But when you do manage to hit a good shot, it feels so satisfying. And you actually have an insane amount of flexibility to hit the ball however you want. But this isn't really a game yet. It doesn't have a purpose or a goal. This is more like a tech demo. And really, I didn't know which way to take it. So that's when I asked for your comments on what you want in this game. A pterodactyl in a tree. Just a personal preference. You asked what I wanted, this is what I want. Can't even really be mad. Overwhelmingly, your comments wanted me to get weird with it. So let's do it. Alright, to take this thing from a tech demo to an actual game that people will want to play, we have those 3 main issues that we need to solve. And for each of these problems, I'm going to combine game design thinking and, well, like a little sprinkle of weirdness, just like the comments suggested. Problem number 1, and one of the most obvious, is that the game's visuals need work. For starters, it always just looks the same. This is especially noticeable if you take a bunch of screenshots at random times and put them next to each other. I always had this goal in the back of my mind that the game should look super distinct, like no other golf game out there. So if it was in some kind of imaginary list of golf games, you'd be scrolling past and be like, hold up, what the hell is that? That's why I went with the vaguely fighter jet pilot aesthetic of heaps of panels of information and controls. I think in many ways, the game does achieve that. It does stand out if it's a single screenshot. But if you look at the game on Steam, where you need a whole bunch of screenshots and a trailer, it just looks like the same screenshot over and over. In fact, I kind of tried to fix this on Steam by having some screenshots from the main menu, but it's really just a band-aid solution to a bigger problem. I think you can also see that this is an issue when you compare the wishlist conversion rate from the video compared to my previous devlog series. I experimented with some different layouts and stuff, but I just feel like the game loses a little something by looking more conventional. So I went digging in the comments for inspiration. There were a few comments about being able to hop into a golf cart and drive around, which I could totally imagine as being some hilarious EnviroBear type experience. And it would give it a lot more visual variety. An even more simple expression of this idea is to just be able to walk around and have a look around the course in first-person mode. We could zoom all the way in like we're entering the golfer's head, and this would instantly give us so much more visual variety and also break up the game structurally. I managed to get the first-person movement happening pretty quickly, and of course this went totally smoothly with no problems whatsoever. I experimented with some different layouts and then found a video on YouTube of someone playing golf with a GoPro attached to their chest. I found a good still frame and took a screenshot, cut out those hands and put them in the game. This is all just temporary. Eventually I'll take my own video to replace this. But instantly, I love this. The game just feels so much more alive. It feels like it's opened up way more. You don't just hit a shot from a specific spot. You might have to find the best possible spot to make your shot from, or find and solve problems by hitting golf balls at them, I guess. The ideas just absolutely started flowing, and some of them were way too ambitious for a solo dev indie game, but overall, I knew this meant that there were legs in this whole first-person idea. Well, not actual legs. The last few steps for this switching modes was to add a quick animation and some sound effects, which make a huge difference. Next up, I burned about 2 weeks trying to kind of pin down how to make the game look good, or more specifically, how bad should it look? If you've followed my channel for a while, you know that art and art direction is my massive weak point. And this was even more challenging than usual. Because the game features these kind of janky video cutouts, it was weirdly hard to find something that looked right for this game. Just adding trees, for example, if I used something fancy like Speed Tree, it actually looked too good and didn't match the jankiness. Eventually, I feel like I kind of found my vibe by accident when I was making this super basic fence for the course. Let me explain. So now that you can walk around, I need to be able to block the player from wandering off into the forest. But I also need the fence to not block your view, so I went with a very basic rope fence. But why wouldn't the player just step over that? Well, we can put a "No entry, snakes" sign on it.
Why did it have to be snakes?
That looks kind of boring. So let's go and grab some photos of snakes and add them to the sign. And I left the Shutterstock watermark on it and everything. And all of a sudden, I felt like it kind of clicked for me. Like this looks bad, but in a kind of deliberate way that makes it maybe good. For the trees, I ended up going with like a classic 6 or 8-sided billboard, which is retro and a bit janky, but in a way that I find charming and interesting and odd. It feels to me like it matches the FMV and the real hand cutouts as well. I just have to lean in to the jank. When I playtest the game, which you'll see later in problem 3, everyone always has a little chuckle at the feet clipping through the ground the first time they see it.
The foot being in the ground stands out.
I was gonna fix that, but now I think the idea is to just lean into those moments, rather than trying to overcome them with art skills that, frankly, I just don't have. Side note, am I allowed to do this with the Shutterstock images? Let me know in the comments if you think this is okay or if I need to replace it in the full real game. Asking YouTube comments seems way cheaper than asking my lawyer. So we can walk around, we can hit golf balls, but the prototype has you completing challenges, but then why are you completing challenges? The game needs something that you are trying to achieve. A goal, a purpose. Something underpinning the why am I taking this shot right now? There is a good argument here that it should just be a regular golf game because then it would be easy. It would be like, I need to get a good score or I need to win the championship or whatever. But this doesn't necessarily vibe with the rest of this whole situation that I've got going on here. I really want to avoid having anything too much like normal serious golf because I think it sets up a whole heap of expectations on how things are going to work. And maybe the idea that this whole mess of a game is actually a realistic simulation. Parts of it are based on a realistic sim, but it's very far from being a simulation of a serious golf swing. So I think if you walked in expecting everything to be realistic and for the normal golf rules to be executed super well, you're maybe going to have a bad time. For what it's worth, I did actually rework the whole way I build the course, so I would have the flexibility to add 18 holes at some stage in the future, but that's not my priority for now. So back to our question, why do you have to hit the golf ball? Why do you need to do these challenges? Well, in the end, I decided to go with the reason as old as time. If it's good enough for Tom Nook, then I guess it's good enough for me too. I'm talking crippling debt. That's right, I, Luke Muscat, have tracked you in this challenge and tricked you into owing me a bunch of money. To work your way out, you will need to complete challenges and bounties and eventually defeat me to escape. All while I observe you from my hiding spot via these security cameras that I made and generally mess with things and change the world around you. Yes, it will get weird. And double yes, this is an allegory for the fact that you will have paid me actual money in real life to play the game that the real actual human Luke made for you. So I think there's some good meta fun we can have with that idea. The whole first person to golf switching thing gives me a lot of flexibility to both have some interesting challenge ideas that mix exploration and golf, and also let the player experiment and find all kinds of stuff, putting their own stamp on the game and eventually breaking out of the restrictive challenges that you're trapped in. Now, this is obviously a wacky situation or a wacky setup, but something that so far has been a slight issue is the fact that the game doesn't specifically announce itself as wacky or weird. I personally think that the name and the font kinda gives it away, but we can do a few more things to make sure the game really starts setting expectations right from the get-go. One example is when I started figuring out what the main menu should look like, and after about 30 minutes of concepting this kind of security cameras monitoring you idea, I started moving around the logo to try and see where it would look good, and it struck me. It's so obvious. I love this because it immediately sets the expectations for what kind of game you might be getting into right from the get-go. Plus, as a bonus, I can post a 10 hours of the Luke Muscat's Ultimate Golf Challenge main menu video. I am only half joking. So at this point, we've made tremendous progress. It's starting to look like a real game. But because the game is fundamentally different from anything else out there, especially in how the golf controls work, we need to playtest the game and see if people are going to get how to play it. Playtesting is the worst, best thing ever. Watching playtests is so painful, so soul-destroying, but it is so valuable. You just gotta do it. I usually get about 20 to-dos per playtest, which I can implement right away that make the game a bunch better. So I ran a whole heap of playtests and I found problems from the very first time you even swing the golf club. So the very first thing that the game asks you to do is drag your hands with the mouse to hit the ball. There are two main problems here. One, many people would drag on the video hands up the top left-hand side. That makes sense. I don't really see it as a big issue because nothing happens when you do it. People figure it out pretty fast, and I don't want to make everything too obvious and too hand-holdy. But when people went down and started dragging their mouse on the main control panel, which you're supposed to do, they would often get mixed up and think they were dragging around the golf club by the head, by the end of it. And the big problem here is it kinda works. If you start tracing a path through the ball, starting at the golf club head, you sometimes get an okay shot and people think, oh, that must be how it works. But then they struggle to get better at it because that's not how it works, so it's very difficult for them to adjust their shot. Luckily, this is an easy fix. First of all, we can just add some visual feedback so the hands light up when you click, and you get a little line between your mouse cursor and the hands, so you get that feeling of dragging it around. The other thing we can do is hide some of the other panels on the screen until they're needed, so there is nothing distracting you from learning how this works, which has the extra bonus of being a fun surprise when these new panels reveal. This panel, where you control the angle and the path of the club face, also had its own fair share of problems. The way this works is it's kind of like balancing a grind in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. It's always trying to fall out of line, and you're kind of fighting with it to keep it lined up. And even though things happen when you press the buttons, the feedback isn't immediately obvious. Someone else actually thought that these arrows showing the spin might represent wind, and that's confusing because spin kind of works the same way as wind, right? It pushes the ball when it's in the air, so it's very easy to get mixed up there. So again, super simple solution, we just need more feedback. So every time you press a button, it's really obvious how you're influencing the club face. It's not all just control related though. In this playtest, the player just wandered off down the rest of the golf course, which is fine, but at the start you have to actually do some tutorial stuff off the tee, and it ends up ages away. We can address this with some level design. We just add a locked gate and a river, and of course by a river I mean a completely plain blue plane, and that blocks the player, and that keeps them in the right spot until we open up the rest of the course for them later in the game. One of the bonus problems with playtesting a game with a janky aesthetic is that if something is actually broken, people might not think it's a bug. They might assume it's actually part of the game. In this playtest, the ball was inexplicably getting rocketed backwards into oblivion. My poor friend here thought it must have just been part of the game, so they were trying to do things like shoot backwards, because obviously this weird game is all about the ball doing unexpected things, so he thought it was part of the game and struggled with it for ages.
How's that even possible?
But slowly, with every playtest, with every fix, the game gets a little bit better and better and better.
That was fun. I would keep playing.
And now, with all of that done, it is almost ready for you to give it a try. The demo experience that I have here is anywhere between 15 minutes and an hour long, depending on your skill level. So I figured, why not do some extra work to make it at least a little bit replayable? So I added tracking for both your time and also the number of shots you have taken. This all gets displayed on the new community board over next to the clubhouse and stops once you've reached the end of the demo. So that way you can technically speedrun the demo, or instead you can play and try and get there in as few shots as possible. I did have this in mind from the very start when I was designing these challenges, so there are a few cool strats here on purpose to get your score down as low as possible, but I'm sure the speedrunning crowd is going to find stuff that I never would have thought of. I also quickly added some quality of life features like an actual pause menu, volume settings, control rebinding. This is all stuff I would need to do eventually anyway, so the self-imposed deadline is useful for getting that in sooner rather than later. So what is left to do at this stage? What is the game missing? Well, I still need to record actual footage for the golfer instead of using the temporary footage of my mate. But I'm putting this off as long as I possibly can, because if I end up adding more features later on in development that need more video, it will be a massive pain to try and match the clothes and the lighting again. But really, the main thing is I need to build more game features, more content. Obviously, we have a long way to go before this is an actual full game and not just a play testable demo. Is play testable a word? Who cares? As of publishing this video, I will have sent this demo out to 300 people who signed up to the playtest. And every time I have a major update, I'll add another 300. I don't want to add everyone all at once because it's so useful to have fresh eyes at each stage. But if you haven't gotten in this round, don't worry, there will be more. The way it works is it's a lottery. I can't control who it goes to. But there are a few keys hidden in the video, so you can do some digging and rewatch it if you want to try and find those. And if you haven't already, definitely go and sign up for the playtest, and of course, wishlist the game. The more people who wishlist the game, the longer I will spend working on it. So show some love and support, add it to your wishlist, or better yet, get all your friends and family to sign up as well. And look, I know the whole thing with this video is I called out a few comments at the beginning, but didn't actually implement those comments. But seriously, your comments are completely helping me shape the game. I literally had no idea what to do with this, but releasing that video and reading everyone's reactions, that informs what I'm going to do. This game wouldn't be taking the shape it would be without your encouragement, without your comments, so please keep them coming. Genuinely, thank you.